This
Here we are.
Here we are. Here we are, Phil. This is Major Phil Smith of the Salvation Army Church, and I don't even know if I'm referred to you as the Salvation Army Church
Yeah.
leader, but you're the
Yes.
the leader of the Salvation Army here in Longview, and Phil is a really, really interesting, deep, experienced leader in town, and hopefully people can see that a little bit today. That's what I hope anyway. Phil.
Yeah.
I really have enjoyed getting to know you the last couple months and running into each other at events in town.
Yeah.
And so, why don't we start by why don't you just share with people how you got to Longview, because it's been an interesting road.
It has. It's a colorful journey that for every Salvation Army probably can share a colorful journey as their path of ministry that they experience as an officer. I've been an officer for 25 years.
Yeah.
And my wife and I came into this work not by design per se,
Right.
but God knew, right? We didn't know, but He knew. And that's maybe a whole nother story, so I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too far. But how did I get to Longview? As a Salvation Army officer, we get appointed
Right.
to the communities where we serve. And so we've served in many. And an appointment really just means that, based on need and attrition and things that would affect a vacancy in a given community, triggers the need to relocate people. And so as a result of that, we move around. The average is maybe 4 or 5 years in a particular location. That's probably about right if I think about it going back and I figure out the averages in our ministry journey. And so, the time came where the opportunity arose to bring off new officers here to Longview. And there's always challenges when you get to a new community. One of the challenges we knew we would face immediately. There was actually two or three of them, but number one, there's been a lot of officers here in the last 10 years. I think there's been 7 different sets of officers that have
we been that difficult for them to deal with?
I don't even want to get into any speculation as to why that was or why that is, but because it's out of my realm of knowledge. But that presents a problem right off the bat. The community coming in, they look at you with hesitancy. Are you going to be around, or are you going to be another one that comes and goes? How long are you going to be here? Or some of the questions that we heard coming in, right? And the good thing is my wife and I are now in our last phase of our career. We retire in 4 years, and so that's what we tell people. Yeah. No, we've come to Longview and we've come to stay. We retire in 4 years, and we love Longview.
Yeah.
So we plan to stick around. Yeah. So that's kind of been the response. But that's how we got here. Some of the other expectations coming in was not just filling a void that we would have to answer to the public as to why there's been so much turnover, but another big reason why this was a good fit for us, and another question we knew we would have to answer is the homelessness issue here in Longview.
Right.
The city government actually had opportunity to meet with Army leadership prior to our arrival. So like the year before we came, our divisional leaders came to Longview by request and had opportunity to meet with the city.
Wow.
In that meeting, they told them, we're bringing new officers to Longview, and they're experienced in social work. And let me just tell you a little about them. Well, my wife and I were directors over all the social services, and that means all the homeless services, all the shelter services, all the residential programs, and direct services to the public in Seattle for 4 years.
Yeah.
And so we had quite a exposure to a lot of the problems that come with homelessness and that Longview is facing. So they reassured the city Longview, that there was good leadership coming and that they could depend on. We got here and we immediately were asked to speak to that. And so we've been kind of doing that ever since. And we've been here a year now. And I feel like we're finally getting maybe knee deep into this conversation.
Yeah.
And now we're looking forward to what we can really do and sink our teeth as a Salvation Army here in Longview to bring about some solutions to issues that plague this community.
Yeah.
As a minister, Salvation Army officers are ministers of the gospel. We're ordained. We preach on Sunday. We have congregations, and Monday through Friday, we serve our community as an extension of that.
Yeah.
With direct services. And the challenge, and it's not really a challenge, but I guess the sweet spot of the ministry for an officer is putting those two things together.
Yeah.
And they at times can seem so separate from one another, especially for another minister, for example, that may not be involved in community work outside of serving his congregation, which is pretty homogenous,
right.
And so for me, it's bringing the gospel into direct community service. And how do you do that? And with regards to homelessness, I tell you, 3 things I've learned. That if you view the principles of ministry and sharing the gospel and apply those to answers to homelessness,
right.
3 things emerge. And the first one I would say is restoration.
Yeah.
We know that the gospel is all about redemption and restoring people to who God created them to be, so that they can love and learn and live their potential, for that.
Yeah.
And restoration for the homeless, to me, is a starting point for restoring hope, restoring dignity.
Yeah.
The one silver lining not a silver lining, but the one commonality that you'll find with homelessness is that nearly everybody you speak to has gotten to a place, or is certainly on their way to that place, where they have just lost all hope.
Right.
There is no hope left. And that changes them, right? And in the process of that, they also are being robbed of any dignity they have left.
Mm-hmm.
You wonder how someone can sleep on a sidewalk and not have any qualms about it, right? Like, gosh, how could you do that? How could you change your clothes in public or use the bathroom in the alley? Gosh, you must not have any self, whatever. But so that dignity gets robbed of them, and you wonder how they get there, because they've lost hope.
Right.
So I think part of how we begin to restore that is get back to the basics of the human condition. If you can treat people and begin to approach them with even just realizing that they're missing just the basic needs of human beings are entitled to.
Yeah.
Shelter, food, warmth, rest, a clean bed, a shower, access to those things that we all take for granted. Those are part of the human condition that are rights to every person.
Right.
And when we come to realize that, and we consider that as a starting place, we can begin to restore their dignity. We can begin to then restore some hope.
Right.
Man, they treat me like I'm a human being again. No one has done that for a long time.
Right.
God bless you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because you see me, right? Because that's the response you get.
Yeah.
And so if you can start with that restoration, then you can move to the regeneration that we all want and would hope for in someone suffering these conditions.
Right.
And the restoration just looks to me as like, that's where you start offering the helps that are identifiable. Whether it's treatment for their addiction, whether it's clinical support for their mental health, those kinds of things. A person's not going to be receiving of those recommendations unless they have hope again.
Yeah.
And so once you have that hope, you can then build on that and start to offer these helps that will help them regenerate some of the things they've lost.
Right.
It's amazing the skill sets that people have still apply to now their new circumstances. Someone who lives in their car, for example, with their children and sends their kids to school with clean clothes every day,
yeah,
and gets them there on time, that's a skill, right? Imagine what they go through to do that. Take that same initiative and that same kind of skill set and apply it to now, rebuilding their life in a different way because they now have opportunity and they now have a way to do that. And you illuminate those things. That's where the regeneration, takes place. And we know that, spiritually speaking, when we have surrendered ourselves to God's will and care, He does that kind of work in us.
Yeah.
That's the redemptive work that begins to take place. And so the restoration, the regeneration, and from there you can move to that, that third place, and that's kind of reintegration into the community. Now that's not a spiritual term.
Right.
But the reintegration, similarly in a spiritual context, is God's purpose for my life.
Right.
Right? Well, reintegration from a social perspective is like you've taken somebody who had nothing, built them up again, and now are giving them an opportunity to find what their dream is.
Right.
Find what their new life is going to look like, and begin to reintegrate with the opportunity back into being contributors to our society.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I've articulated that well, but
you've done.
The ministry is evident through all that when you look at it through that lens, and all along the way you get to illuminate Christ.
Yeah.
You can illuminate God's plan and purpose.
Yeah.
In at any one of those places. And so I love that kind of ministry because that's real world application.
Yeah.
That's going to feed people's body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
As a leader, because as a person, success for me would be, I don't know how to put it. Happy.
Yeah.
Confident about who I am as a person and who I am as a child of God.
Yeah.
And happy in all of that and how He's presented opportunities for me to live that kind of life.
Right.
To live out those things in my life. Yeah. I guess that's how I answer that question as a person. As a leader, it would be.
Now this is assuming that you are a servant leader.
Yeah.
Which I think that goes without saying for most of us, but I think some people think that the leaders are the ones out front that are charging ahead and casting vision and everything. But I think most of the people I know that are very, very good leaders lead with a servant's heart. They're there to serve. They're not there to command forces. They're there to kind of come underneath people and serve them. So
yeah, I guess it's like all things about our Christian life. It's in the fruit, right? And if you're serving people as an outgrowth of your love for the Lord and as you apply it to the works He's placed in front of you and serving others, it's going to be, I guess, evidenced by your fruits.
Right.
Are people actually being served? Do they find themselves moving towards the objectives that they have for their life as a result of that service? And it may be spiritually, it may be practically.
Well, I am so thrilled you're here.
Thank you.
And I hope that I hope that you can also be a bridge for some of the pastoral leaders in town that just need to get familiar with how you do social services. I think some of the sometimes pastors get a little separated from that. We get a little bit consumed with what happens on Sundays and then forget that there are another 6 days a week where we can do things besides, although study and prayer is good, but get out and touch the community a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I agree. But conversely, my strengths may be in some of the areas, that we've talked about today and that have been demonstrated in this conversation. But, the hand is not the foot.
No.
No. And so we all are gifted in different ways. And I think same goes for churches and denominations. I don't know that the Salvation Army will ever be a mega church on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because that's just not who we are. Typically our churches, our congregations are small. And, if you look at church growth and define by numerically what a large church is versus a medium church and a small church, we're always going to be a small church.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I've learned pretty quickly that I'm not, it's not who I am to aspire necessarily to become more of something that God has not really chosen me for.
Right.
And so I guess that's a roundabout way of responding to your comment, because churches that maybe don't do social work or aren't as comfortable in it or aren't as familiar with it, maybe they need to be exposed to it or maybe have more familiarity but maybe that just means having a relationship with a church that does. And figuring out how we can.
So are you okay with that?
How we can serve one another.
You okay with pastors having a relationship with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was so glad to come to Helena and find out about KLMA. and I've been, to several meetings, but I got to be honest with you. I'm way more glad that I've stumbled into CityServe.
Oh.
Because I think this ministry that you're launching and developing really gets to the heart of what KLMA is all about.
Yeah.
It's really about supporting one another, with practical ways of doing so. And, meeting once a month and having a discussion and, kind of a fellowship is important too, which is a lot about what KLMA is all about in what I've experienced.
Yeah.
But what I'm finding in your ministry is that it runs a little deeper, a lot deeper. And so I'm looking forward to, venturing into some of those places that you have raised up. And
are you talking about the coffee shops? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about like your trainings and those kinds of things. And your I've already taken advantage of some of your pastoral support. You've got a tab on your website with a list of like 15 people who said, I'd be willing to step into your pulpit if you needed needed a day off.
Yeah.
Well, man, I tell you, that's a huge thing for me.
Oh.
We don't, because we're such a small church, and the people that we attract really come out of the population that we serve. They're not necessarily long-standing generational Christians with deep faith that are, growing in that way. But and so it's hard to draw on that crowd to, support you in the pulpit if you're going to be gone. So anyway,
that's good.
I thought that was a nice.
Well, don't anyone let the uniform stop you from giving this guy a call. And I really look forward to the days ahead and working together, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a blessing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I look forward to what comes on the next page.
Yeah. We really hope today's episode was helpful. You'll find more resources and content to connect with other community leaders by going to our website, cityservecowlitz.org. So, it's been a joy to walk with you, and we'll see you soon.